Product is the new marketing. We've heard that, but we have a new twist in that as well, because it's about what happens when product is potentially as individual as marketing should be. Now that is a brand new topic. That's actually kind of mind blowing in a way, Mike. It's something I have to thank you for, because it's all up to you. You found this one.
Yeah, sure. So it is a fascinating concept, looking at, product and marketing sort of working as one. And, it's all about how you engage with that user. Do you engage them through the products or through the marketing content? It's a bit of both. I was at a conference in Manchester recently about something very, very much related to this sort of concept about how you can control ultimately the app experience and content directly from the service. It's actually pulled dynamically down. And that got me thinking about some really cool use cases for it. And it was wonderful just to hear about, somebody so, forward thinking and pioneering in the sort of mobile space that's using these techniques for a big brand such as Autotrader. So,
and that's why we're going to bring him in. So we have Jimmy Ray, principal software engineer at Autotrader, with an exciting background. I'd like to understand how you sort of bring these two together, because an interest in games development, real interested in psychology, and also, as Mike pointed out, shaping that experience, that content experience.
I've always found it extremely interesting the way users interact with products and the way they look around different systems. And traditionally on mobile apps, that's been quite fixed in the clients. So every time you want to do an update, you've got to make a change and do a release. So for all the analytics and all the data you can extract or look at or see, you've still got this lag between when you can see things and when you can react to it and when you can do things. Understanding how to dynamically build and compose screens depending on what the user does in those screens, just really kind of like sets a nice place to start.
Let's shift a little bit to Autotrader, right? We know it as this massive marketplace for retail, basically, but it's much, much more than that.
Yeah, so Autotrader were the UK's, we're kind of like powerhouse behind the UK's automotive industry. We've got about 14,000 retailers that we work with. Our data is so vast and reliable that it actually is used by the government to inform the national statistics and the Bank of England with their projections. But we're also a very focused company. We work solely within the UK at the moment. We were abroad, but we dialed it in to just focus on what we do, a very UK-centric company.
And a huge audience for your app. You have significant audience, but also significant interaction.
Yeah, we've got about, over the apps, we've got about 3.3 million unique monthly active users. And those users give us about 28 million sessions. So there's quite a high average session count per user.
From what you were saying, it sounds, so the bit I'm really interested in is how you're using this to actually improve. Because as much as, it's cool and it's innovative, usually it's got to have some business value. So it sounds like you're using it quite heavily to optimize and, test different variations of things in the app. But is that the only use for it?
Well, anything we really do is driven by data. The users are only one of those customers. The retailers are another customer. And we try and connect those users to the right products, the vehicles they want to purchase. But we also need to enable the retailers to get the scope within the marketplace, fulfill their specific needs, make sure that all the flows are working and that users, customers can go through and purchase different vehicles that they need. We've just, in the past few years, moved over to digital retailing. So previously we took quite a bit of a step back from the process. We connected the users to their products and then let the dealerships and the retailers finish that journey. Now we're taking more interaction in that, and we're using the data a lot more to kind of like guide those flows.
Obviously, this data has massive value, not just from informing product direction and roadmap, but from driving engagement, driving conversions, increasing that sort of that ultimate outcome of somebody buying a car. Do you work quite closely with a marketing team?
So we have product teams which develop products for the retailers to enable them to get the reach they need to the consumers, the users. And within those product teams, there will be data analysts. We've actually got around 400 data analysts and product developers.
That's a lot.
So all of those work together in different areas for different products, even though to say the app levels, if we're developing something and we need information, well, we're trying to make this decision. We don't know whether we use this button or that button. Is there any data to back up whether we can remove that button or not? We can go and ask and do that. People fire up little dashboards all the time just to see.
Yeah, no, crikey, I can't believe you're as much a data business as a marketplace for cars. Peggy's probably got 1,000 other questions, but I'm just wondering, have you ever had, because marketplaces ultimately it's about critical mass. If you don't have the buyers in there, it doesn't exist and the sellers won't come. Obviously, you've got an incredibly healthy MAU. That's bonkers really for a UK only app, and something that people aren't always doing. You're not always buying a car every week. So that's an amazing volume for MAU. You ever release something that's basically, you realise straight away, oh crikey, like that's killed the engagement, and you've had to flip it back quickly, which obviously under old school, the way of doing it, you'd have to have a new app release and it'd take a long time. But in your world, thankfully, I guess it's a bit more forgiving if you're a bit more adventurous with some of the changes.
We always experiment. We always try new things. So there quite often is cases where things go wrong. There was quite a fun one recently where we'd released a change and we hadn't realised it had knocked something off one of the adverts, and within an hour, we'd had feedback from users that they couldn't see a certain thing coming through the normal feedback channels, and we'd reverted it and fixed the issue. Now, in a days gone by way of working with a normal app release, that could have been weeks or months to even do anything.
It's amazing. You didn't knock the price off, did you?
Thankfully not, no. It was actually something very small.
Yeah.
Well, they're looking, that's for sure, Jimmy, right? They're noticing. And it's really good that you can do that quickly. What can you share to just give us an idea of the consumer behaviors at a high level? Again, everybody wants their own experience. How many types of consumers or personas are we thinking about here?
There's absolutely tons. It's, to even start thinking, even just between mobile, web and app users, there's a large difference. So say on the apps, there's 75% of users are logged in with an account. And you take that to mobile web and the rate is a lot lower on there. We get about 50% of sessions on apps. We've had, a 50% of leads as well. So there's a strong start to end connection there. But on the mobile apps, we actually have about 60% of advert views. So there's a clear indicator there that people are sitting around and looking at more adverts on the app than they would on the web.
In more traditional retail space, we're seeing a big theme of, our clients pushing people from web and mobile web into app. It sounds like the app is, generally probably higher engagement, higher, value from the users. Is that a sort of focus of trying to drive, or do you find there are just some people that refuse point blank, they just want to experience it on the desktop web and that's it?
It's 50% of users that go on the apps. So there is still a reasonable amount that just stay on the web. I mean, the thing is, the purchasing a car or purchasing a vehicle is it's the second biggest purchase you're going to make over buying a house. And it's a long journey. So it can take months of research and planning before people make that step. Sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. Sometimes people just like sitting and browsing and looking at the dream cars that they could eventually purchase.
You know, some of the people that will be listening to this podcast, because they'll be on the product side. I was wondering, because when I was watching your talk, it was fascinating just to hear about some of the details in how you've set this up. And obviously we don't need to go into like talking about individual, you know, classes and SDKs using frameworks, but be quite useful, I'm sure, for some of the product teams to understand, you know, how difficult is it to achieve what you've managed to do at AutoTrader, and, you know, how complex was it to set up? Because obviously it sounds like the value is massive, and, you know, you're ultimately able to, you know, quickly flip most of what's inside that binary, you know, in sort of seconds.
So originally, our app development was fairly traditional. We would have all our back-end services, send the apps data, you know, you do a search, it sends you search results with all the names of the cars and the mileage and the price and all those in separate values. The apps then parse that and work out how to display the UI for that. So they've got a pre-configured, this is an advert and this is what it looks like. So when a user sees that, it's fixed. And if we need to change that, we've got to do another app release. Now, those app releases can take months. It can take months for the users to actually get them in the hands and be using them. I mean, we can actually probably get a release together in a week or so, but the uploading that to the store, having it tested, validated, having a user realize that they need to download the update and update that app. If they actually decide to update it, it can be so long before a product change has actually reached a user. So what we've done with the composable system that I mentioned is we've built a system where instead of sending the data to the clients, for the clients to then draw it and show it, we send the UI definition. So we'll now say, instead of saying, oh, this is a Vauxhall Corsa, it's £10,000, you use that data and show it how you want, we'll say, we have a title, Vauxhall. Then, slightly smaller the title, Corsa, image box with this URL. And then price tag a little bit further below that. Now, this enables us to update and change the UI and the products we're delivering to users from the server, which means that now both our Android and our iOS apps are perfectly aligned. We make one change that's released on both at once. Ooh. And it also means we can work a lot faster, so we can see results coming from A/B tests. We can see that we've released something and it's broke and fix that really quickly because it's now a server release. And because we release the kind of positions of the UI and the UI elements, we can move everything around on the page. So if we have a product that we say, oh, this isn't doing so well, maybe it's because the visibility, maybe it's, you know, the term below the fold, which I think is going out of fashion nowadays. So it's, oh, the product's not on the page. Maybe we could bump this up a little bit more. Yeah, so we can do that on the fly now with a little server change, rather than having to do that whole release process.
Now, why I think this is cool and exciting, and it's probably not what it was fundamentally meant for, but imagine a world in which, you know, you can dynamically adapt the type of interface depending on the demographic of the person that's just installed it. Because the big problem with an app, you know, the big problem with any app is you get somebody to install it, they get on session one, and they're like, oh, I don't get it, can't use it, don't understand it, and you churn them, and they never come back again. That is a massive issue. Imagine you can adaptively serve up an interface based on that user's age. Maybe they're an older demographic. You want to simplify so there's not lots of buttons, or maybe some of the UX design needs to be, simplified. We pull things out, or they're from maybe they've come through an ad that was served in games, like an in-app native advert. Maybe you want to produce more of a cool gamey style interface for them. There may be elements that you can adapt to the interface and to the UI and the UX itself fundamentally to make it more of an appealing app. Depending on who you are, you had a totally different experience and app interface. I think that would be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, the possibilities are endless, really, especially because we've now freed up a lot of the workload that was on the app team. Because obviously any product change previously would rely on an Android developer and an iOS developer being free to work, implementing that change and doing the release. We've now got our web teams and product teams able to work and take ownership of their full product end to end, which frees up the other teams to work on potentially things like that. We already do it for retailers. So each retailer that comes in's got their own unique situation. I mean, we've got 14,000 different retailers we work with. Some of them will work with different finance lenders. Some of them will work with different external suppliers. So they'll need tweaks to the flows that we're doing. In fact, the digital retailing offering that we're now delivering, I think would have been extremely difficult to do if it was with the traditional app method.
Giving an app experience, a different app experience for different types of users, different groups of users, segments. I mean, that has to be something that you not only find exciting, but do you find it feasible? You just said yourself, you're doing it with retailers. What is the jump or the move to doing that for users?
Well, I mean, at the moment, we're working on supporting as much accessibility options as we can. So it's not only the actual physical UI sent to the user, but enabling people to interact and use the app that may have struggled before, or maybe, as we've discussed, you can release bugs, but now we can fix them faster. And we can improve those experiences, and the backlogs have shortened, so we have time to do that. There's also places like the home screen, which we have on the apps, which allows more personalised content and personalised landing space for them. And as soon as we get more and more of our composable back-end system within the rest of the app, it just opens up more and more possibilities, really.
I'm convinced that this is the future of development. A lot of companies already adopt this to a certain extent, but I think pushing it full throttle, to use the motoring analogy, but pushing it full throttle, and getting it to its full server side, I think is going to open up a whole new wave of opportunities, not just for testing, optimization, rapid bug fixing, but for, dare I say, personalization or completely contextually modified experiences. Maybe it depends on where you are. Maybe you're in London, or maybe you're in New York, and you get a different experience. But the opportunities there in terms of improving engagement, driving higher, maybe 10, 20% higher through this sort of product development approach, I think it can only be an amazing outcome and something that is going to be quite broadly, I think, accepted as a common approach in the next sort of few years.
I think many companies have tried server-driven UI in different ways, and they've all hit different problems. I mean, a web page is server-driven UI. That's what we're kind of going towards, ironically. But at the same time, because we've built our bespoke system, we only deliver the certain UI elements that we can support. So if a product team want to add a button to the app, it has to match the style that is in the rest of the app, which gives us the ability that if we do need to, or we do want to change the layout and give a new experience to one section of customers, it's going to feel the same because the UI elements and the standards are always the same, and we know we can support that. When you take it back to web development, the options there are so flexible and so vast that unless you've got, a similar tight design system, it's going to take a while to develop and test to make sure that you're supporting all the different screen sizes and elements that web can support. And that time stops you acting quickly and being able to have time to develop these products for people.
I was going to say, Jimmy, it sounds like you could license this out, this development methodology.
I was thinking because you built it in-house. This is your thing. This is your baby.
Oh yeah, it's. We looked at the problem we had and the things we needed to solve, and then a few of us got together and started the system. And as a team, we've developed and grown it. But that does mean that it's bespoke to our business. And while that's an advantage, it does take away from the ability to license.
How much free reign do you have? Can you go bonkers and say, let's just make the whole app theme pink and neon pink Barbie style for this week or so? Or are the sort of controls and checks and balances in place to stop you going crazy with your testing?
Oh, we do have quite a degree of freedom, but it is all sanity checked, and we do run things by people. But in general, we will decide what we're doing and have roadmaps and general plans and make sure we're aligning to company strategies. But yeah, as long as people don't go bonkers.
You've got plans to, just as I'm thinking about it, sort of skin the app, as it becomes into winter, or maybe there's a big football tournament or something on. Are you planning to sort of change the UX UI depending on seasonality or different, big events going on in the UK, or is that a step too far?
Well, there is actually already some areas that have different. So we've got different imagery for summer and autumn and winter. A great fun when I looked at the original code for that. Somebody had tried to work it out off all the solstices, and they'd got the exact days and dates to the minute of when the pictures needed to change over. But yeah, one of the great ones recently was the Black Friday period. So that's always every single app. You've got this period where you update it. And traditionally, there is, most places do have some sort of server-driven content. Usually that's a banner somewhere, maybe the home layout, something like that. But because of composable platform, we're actually able to update throughout the app in multiple little areas when things change. So the Black Friday release wasn't actually a release last year. It was just a server release. And everything was driven from the back end. I'm
sat here just listening to you talk and thinking of so many additional ideas as you keep going through these things, how it could apply to some of our clients as well. It's a fascinating talk.
So I think there is quite a number of companies that attempt it. There's some companies that have done it, and I know there's actually some gambling industries that do that, and their systems entirely back-end driven. There's so many little pitfalls and so many things that can go wrong. We've just taken the approach of doing a tiny little chunk, piece by piece. We started off very, very small. And we made something that our team could all contribute to. So there was no single point of failure. We could keep growing it organically. And thankfully, we're at the point now where it was really seeing the fruits of it.
So just to follow up on that, because that's what it's about, a little bit of advice here, because we're probably getting people in the audience as enthusiastic as Mike saying, yes, this is really cool. I can totally see this. I can see this for product. I can also lay the groundwork for marketing. What is it that you would like to give them as some advice on where to start, or knowing about the pitfalls? Because you said it yourself, you started small, you knew what you were getting into, that helped you avoid some of the issues.
Start off with something you can think about versioning with. Simple as. Because you don't know what you're going to need in the future, so don't plan too far ahead, but plan that you can change it as you go. Our first thing was implemented so that we could control different versions for different clients, because we knew that our app releases weren't going to line up with the server releases, and that's enabled us to grow. Keep the core concept simple. If it's a concept you can reuse and recycle on how the architecture works, then that'll allow you to grow it however fast you need to grow it. Letting the team be involved and making sure that anybody in the team can support it means that you're always equal on investment and reward. At any point where we've been developing this, we could have stopped, and we've still each time we made a new version, we made a new product alongside it. So the versions were made to support that product with the in mind. We'll make these little sections of UI that we can reuse in future. That meant that even if we stop this at that point, we've still got the products that we needed out.
Now, what we're doing in this series is we're also looking at how product, marketing, data, engagement, all of that fit together. That's all joined up in a flywheel where data is the core and product and marketing are aligned. So we're going to talk about sustainable, profitable growth, and just a rapid fire here and getting your views on a few of the questions that we have.
I'd be really curious to know, Jimmy, what do you think the biggest challenge is, in achieving sustainable growth? And it doesn't have to be just for AutoTrader, but in general, in your experience, what do you think the big challenge is to getting to scalable, profitable, a successful app and achieving that sustainable growth?
I guess the main thing is always going to be the people. You need the right people pushing in the right direction, thinking about the right things, building the right tools. It's not necessarily just the people, though. It's the way they're treated and the autonomy and the feedback.
We talk about the data. Product analytics is really important here. In your view, is product analytics understated or not just understood?
For AutoTrader, data is the key for everything. We constantly look and change and evaluate. We make decisions and see how those decisions impact everything else. Obviously, we've got our key metrics that we look against. I think we're probably quite understated the way that we use them, because we're not always looking for the next change. Sometimes things are just working, and you don't need to be constantly going, oh, how can we improve things? How can we tweak things? But at the same time, we also do go, how can we improve things? How can we tweak things?
I've also got a quick question as well, a rapid fire question that I'm
Go
quite
for it.
curious. I know what Jimmy's answer is going to be. Well, I think it might be unexpected, but hopefully it's the answer I'm looking for, because it will allow me to rub lots of people's faces in it back at the office. But Jimmy, it's an easy one, and it's a one-word answer, but iPhone or Galaxy?
Pixel.
Oh, no, that wasn't the answer I wanted. Fair enough. Well, at least it's an Android phone, so...
Well,
still 1-0 Android.
Back on the sustainable growth one. I guess my definition for sustainable growth would be developing and growing your business or product in a way that you can keep up with the demand on it. So never going too far out of your comfort zone with it, but always keeping a little uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing.
That makes sense, because it's also about not overextending yourself to acquire users who aren't going to stick with you. And that's what you're doing also through your product, is you are dynamically changing that so that literally almost, it's like making everyone an offer they can't refuse, right?
Definitely.
I want to thank you, Jimmy. And of course, great to have you both. Mike, Jimmy, great stuff. I'm sure you're going to be connecting with each other to continue this conversation.
Well,
So
we'll
let's
grab a
let
few
our
beers
listeners,
at some point in Manchester, Jimmy. I could chat to you for hours about this.
Yeah, definitely.
just a quick one from each of you. How do they connect with you and continue the conversation? I'll start with you, Jimmy.
I'm available on LinkedIn. I think it's LinkedIn/Jimmy Ray UK.
And also on the speaking tour. I mean, that's how you guys met. Mike, how do they keep in touch with you?
Oh, lots of ways, lots of ways. LinkedIn/Michael Rhodes 1, because somebody already took Michael Rhodes, annoyingly. Or, even better, consultmyapp.com, and you can get in touch there. There are thousands of calls to action on the site to call and speak to us. And you know what? I will have a look at every one of them that comes through. So, please do feel free to reach out for a chat.